Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next podcast. And we've got a really interesting question that's been fired at us today. And as some independent consultants here, it's a controversial one for us, I think. Should you use social media to look for support and ask for help and expertise? It's a fascinating one because I know personally, I see it all the time. The classic is, hey, I'm just getting a new logo designed. What do you think? Or can anyone help me build a website? And it amazes me how many times I see this almost on a daily basis. And in fact, how many responses you get all of the time. But the question is whether they should use it and whether they even do use it at all. So, it's one we're going to bring the guys into. Yuri, how are you feeling about this one?
That's an interesting topic, and I like the word controversial because I'm pretty sure that many people or many businesses succeed from the crowd support, and many fail from that as well. So, from my perspective and from my experience, it is, first of all, it is a matter of checking who is giving you advice. And the second, probably more important thing, even if the person is credible, so got really good profile, knows like expert in their space, need to make sure that their goal and your goal are aligned. Because even though the best advice, but in different direction, could be worst advice.
Yeah, I add to that, Yuri, that we are all connected to different people on social media. Some are closer to us, some not. Some we know, especially on LinkedIn, on the professional and social network. We connected to many people that we don't know personally, and other we know. I think we need to, as you said, Yuri, we need to look at who is providing the advice. Or the connection, and that will help us to decide whether this advice is actually good for us.
I think one of the things that we should distinguish between is business advice and personal advice. And I think where social media plays an important role is, for example, if you need a plumber and you want someone who's local, it could be great to go on there and ask all your friends in the area or a local group and say, can anyone recommend a local plumber? I don't have a problem with those kinds of services. But where you are taking real business advice that could have a massive impact on it, I know from a marketing perspective, branding is a classic example of where people get it wrong. So often people try and spend the least amount of money possible. So they're going online and getting a whole lot of really cheap services to answer not even a proper brief about what the brand should be. But then whether they have gone through that process or used a proper agency to then go and ask, even offline, ask friends and family, let alone going online and asking a reasonably random sample group what people think, doesn't make any sense, because those people aren't necessarily in your target audience. So that's a mistake that I see happen, as I said, on a daily basis. I love these posts. I'm in various groups where you see someone say, I want to build a website, and can anyone recommend someone? And next thing you know, there is 50 or 60 responses to it. I've tried responding once or twice just to see what happens. Nobody ever contacts you. I think it's just an excuse to try and see how many friends you've got or how many people will interact with you. What people have to remember about social media is being on social media is about building trust with your audience and building awareness. It's different and that's what you do in your profile and as you post. But to go and ask randomly strangers, hey, can someone give me some advice that could have a significant impact on your business, unless you are going and direct messaging them, and because there is a level of trust, because you've seen what they've posted over a period of time and perhaps you even know them, then going down this path is very dangerous, if you ask me. You know, Yuri, what's your thoughts? Have you had any approaches from people or been in situations where they've randomly asked you questions?
Yes, definitely. I've got a couple of things to add on the personal side. Yes, when we are talking about advice of like very basic services that can be done pretty much by anyone in the industry, that's fine. But when we are talking again about the personal advice can go very personal, like dietary or something like that really can affect you. This is where I think everyone needs to be very cautious and make sure at least person knows what they're talking about and they knows where you're trying to go. So you know they know your goal, because especially in the personal space, lots of people on social media these days share their own experience, what worked for them, but what worked for them well may not work for you. Well.
And I think if you go that path and you send your message on social media looking for something, service, product, it doesn't matter what, you need to be very specific, because Anthony, so your example of I want a website. Website can be a tiny one-page, one screen to a massive database with a lot of functionality, e-commerce. So you need to be very specific for what you're looking for, so you have better chance to get a good recommendation.
I think one of the things to consider as well is, particularly if you look, like, I don't know, the experience around software for various aspects of your business, and asking people for opinions, or even scrolling through comments. You know, people don't understand your needs specifically, and you want to go to someone you can trust. I think you know, if you're going to someone and you see their comment, you bother to look at their profile and their website, and you think they've got some credibility, then reach out and have a conversation. See if their needs and their use matches your needs and your use, in order to see whether the opinion might be valid or not. Because more often than not, what people's experiences are going to be different to potentially what you need, and potentially what your experience might be, as we all have with things. So you have to take these things with a grain of salt. But really, I just don't think anything replaces an actual conversation. Yuri?
I absolutely agree, because just a few comments on the social media or even direct messaging, in very brief, that won't explore all the potentials. I've got an experience from branding perspective or logo, when you just ask for opinion, and especially branding and appearance is very subjective thing that most people will reply, I just like it or not, whether it just looks good or not. But if we are talking about, for example, banner for LinkedIn or banner for the website, it's better to pay attention and see, look for constructive feedback to just certain points, what works, what not, what like appeals, something like this.
The critical thing with that is that they need to be in your core audience. You know, I've seen it before, where you see, as you touched upon, there's a lot of personal opinion that comes in. And, you know, when you have a situation where people may or may not like a certain color, for example, it's actually not relevant if they're not in your core audience. If they're in your core audience, that's a different story. Then you can have some debate about whether it appeals or not. But, you know, the obvious one would be saying, hey, I've got a group that's aimed at a very specific audience, and to go and ask someone who's not in it what their opinion is, you know, it's completely useless. And I find it as well, even when I'm doing branding exercises, you know, going off on a little bit of a tangent here. I remember a classic case, sitting down with a client who we were examining a new branding option. And we were at a cafe, and he pointed behind me, he said, I want my logo to kind of model on this one. And I looked behind me, and it was the National Australia Bank, NAB. And I looked back at him and I said, NAB has absolutely nothing to do with your business. You know, it's the wrong audience. It's the wrong colors. It's the wrong, everything about it was wrong. I said, you might like the logo, and I have no problem with the NAB logo, but It just has nothing to do with what's relevant to you. And I think that's the important message here, is that it really is about making sure that the people you're engaging with can be trusted and understand your needs, understand your audience's needs, if that's what the case is, and take with a grain of salt their comments as to how relevant they are, until such time as you have a conversation. If we did everything based solely on what reviews are, we've got to remember that most of the time reviews are negative. And people that are putting the positive stuff when you go and ask something are trying to grab business in a hurry and have skipped all that process of building trust with you. So I think that's the message, unless anyone has any final comments to add to this one. I think it was a great question, and we welcome those questions coming through. Keep posting them, and just message any one of us, or put a message below where you see this podcast, and we'd love to engage with you further, and looks forward to hearing from you next time and joining in our next podcast.